Yo, what is going on today, YouTube? Hope you guys are doing fantastic. Tier list time is here. We've just added 2 new gods. I got a good chunk of games in, like 10 with Ron Sobec, and I also played him previously. I've got a feeling this is going to be my best tier list yet. The finished pictures of Sobec and Raw aren't in it yet, but I talk about them at the end where I would place them. You'll just have to use your imagination to see them in the tier that I put them in. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you guys get all that Smite 2 content, that delicious Smite 2 content. Before jumping in, let's talk about what each of these tiers mean. S tier. This character has very few counters, is also just very strong in most matchups. Easy first pick. Most games you should ban it. A tier is good in most games, sometimes isn't the best, like has some bad matchups, still very strong character though. B tier is counterable, is still very good at its niche job, but it's not strong enough to be picked in a lot of games. C should rarely be picked, not great, has some very rare niche scenarios where it can be an okay pick, but it's mostly like a heavy counter pick. And then Rip is this character is useless. But yeah, Alma, I think Alma is a great start to A. Has obvious strengths, very strong in laning phase, scales into the late game, very hard to kill, does a good amount of damage. Her build is very strong right now. I actually think she has 2 really good builds. I think a lot of people are going for the intelligence build, but I think like a Kin's, Braggy's auto attack build is also very, very strong. But yeah, Alma's good. On her, there's a little spoiler alert to this. Most hunters are going to be B tier or lower because they're just not very good. Their items aren't very good. They don't have great survivability. Solos kind of just run them down. Junglers just one-shot them. I think on her's probably one of the stronger ones, which is crazy, and he's still only B tier. Anubis, after a bunch of nerfs, I think he's probably still A tier, but it's a barely A tier. We could argue A or B. He's either high B or low A. I'm going to put him in A tier because I think a lot of mages aren't very good. So I think that there is like that. Most of the other gods in this class aren't very strong. It kind of bumps him up to A tier. Very good laning phase. I actually think he scales well into the late game. Very good. I think he's strong early, weak mid game, strong late game. That mid game is very important though, and it's very exploitable playing against Anubis. But if he gets off to an early lead and he's very good and he's very fed, he can dominate mid game also. Ares, he's the worst support currently. I don't think it's very close. I don't even know what you do with this kit. I feel like most other CCs in the game got better. Ares ult got worse. And in my mind, a lot of Smite 2 is supposed to be every CC is made worse. And I saw Ares' kit and I was like, okay, this is going to happen with everyone's kit. No, everyone's kit, the CC stayed the same. His just got worse. So yeah, kind of crazy that he got messed up like that much. Athena's fine. I think her strength is her flex potential. I think she's a solid jungler. I think she's a solid support, but I don't think she excels at either of them. Very good in comp where you can play around the ultimate. Solid in ranked because it just gives you a free engage, and you can also just play around like your fed teammate that's dominating. But I don't think there's anything like special about the character. She's just kind of Athena. She has good engage and she has global. That's all she does. Bacchus. I still think Bacchus is an A tier. He has so much CC. There is going to be something that I'm going to express with a lot of these characters, and a lot of it comes down to how good is their CC or how good are they against CC. Bacchus is good against most CCs, even though he doesn't have CC immunity because he's knock-up immune on his 3. He's also just got a ton of CC. The 3 stun duration, the knock-up on the 2, and then also the ultimate. It's very tough to play against, and he also just does enough damage to threaten you even as a support. Baron, probably one of the best gods in the game. Flex potential, too much CC, too much survivability, too much healing, good enough damage. Like, this character's kit currently breaks the game. Flat out, it breaks the game. Way too much CC on a ranged character that you can't really even threaten. It's not like you're playing against a Zeus who has a lot of CC where if you get on top of him, you can kill him or CC him before he does anything. This character's just immune the entire time. He reduces the damage you do to him if he hits you with too many abilities, which is very easy to hit. I personally hate the character currently. I hate him. Bellona. We'll stick Bellona in B tier. I think she's a little underrated. I think she would be better if hunters were better and there was like a reason to play her. Currently, she kind of just wins lane and then doesn't really do much in mid game and then doesn't really do much late game. But if you want to snowball, Bellona does that really well. There's just nothing she really does outside of that. Like, her ult is cool. It does damage, it CCs, but that's really it outside of countering hunters. And currently, hunters are the most useless class in the game. So countering the most useless class isn't going to make you any better. CERN, probably B tier. Maybe even an argument for C tier. Nah, he's B tier. Build is okay. He actually has a good amount of CC, which is surprising to have him in B tier with the amount of CC that he has. It's just like hunter items are just so weak. You go crit, they go spectral, they go the movement speed and attack speed reduction item, Pharaoh's curse, I think it is. And you can't get away from them, and they just beat you down, and you can't threaten them, you can't kill them. It doesn't feel good to play most ADCs, and he's not safe enough. At least on her has like the CC immunity aspect. CERN doesn't have that. Shock. Probably same as Bologna. I don't think there's any reason to pick him. He lives laning phase. He's fine at most points. He's got okay CC, okay damage. He's got okay survivability. Maybe I'm missing something with him, but I'm not picking him over Amma in solo or Anubis or Bacchus or Baron. And I don't think he's a very good jungler, so. Danza's the best of the hunters except one. He has so much CC and he's just got survivability built into his kit. And then he's got safe lane clear. Is he great? No, but is he A tier? I don't think so, just because he's not another hunter. Fenrir, same as Baron, exact same case. Too much CC, too much damage, too much survivability, too much threat, doesn't do anything badly, flexes into multiple roles, inherently breaks the game as it currently is. I am begging for nerfs on these two characters. They still just ruined the game. Hades, probably our second entry into the C tier. I think Ares has a slightly higher case to be in the RIP tier. Hades is just shifted as a character. He doesn't really do a ton of damage, but he's got a lot of utility. He heals a lot. He's hard to deal with. Once the game goes late, he can threaten your backline like a surprising amount just because of how weak ADCs are. But he doesn't really win laning phase against most characters. So he doesn't really win laning phase. He's okay in the mid game. He is kind of hard to gank, but there's just really no reason to pick him. Hecate still probably the best mid laner. A lot of safety, good CC, very long range. I think she has a potential where if she falls behind, she's very easy to deal with. But even then, she could just toss her 3 into her fed teammate, do a little extra damage, and it gives him some a magic shield. So even when she's behind, I think she still has some semblance of strength. Hercules. When Hercules was released, I think he was S tier, but they've kind of nerfed him a lot. I'm gonna put him in B tier. Like, he's closer to Chalk and Bologna than he is versus Alma. They probably over nerfed him, and they nerfed what they should have nerfed with him, but I think they kind of have to do the same thing with like Alma. Alma's 1's cooldown is so low, and then the survivability she gets from the 2 with the intelligence build, and then her damage with the strength build. She just has too many positives. Herc doesn't have that same amount of positives. He's still got a lot of CC. If he gets ahead, he's very dangerous, but you can kill him pretty easily. Jingwei, the best hunter. Super safe. Even though she doesn't have like a ton of threat, she's just a good ADC because she can live, so she can just pull objectives and hit objectives. That's the only reason she's the best ADC. Every other ADC isn't safe enough. Every other ADC just dies when they get dove. Jingwei can live a dive. Kukulkan. I'm gonna put Kukulkan in A tier. I really think Kukulkan is overlooked as a mid lane mage. Very safe, very hard to kill, has a lot of like kill potential onto you without putting himself out of position. Abuses Polynomicon, basically gives you another 2 abilities in the late game. I think he's absurdly broken comparatively to what people think. I think people underrate him so much. I don't think he's S tier, but I do think he's very easily A tier. Loki, probably your best assassin outside of Fenrir. If Fenrir wasn't broken, we could have a conversation about how good Loki is. I think Loki has probably the second highest chance to be into the S tier with Baron and Fenrir. I'm keeping these two in S tier by themselves, though, just because of how broken and flawed their kits are. Loki's just strong because he's good. Very good poke, very hard to deal with, very hard to kill, farms very well, ganks very well, very few downsides. Like, even if he's forced to split push, he can 1v1. If he's forced to team fight, he's got a very good team fight kit. Very hard to pick. There's just not very many negatives with Loki. Very low cooldowns. Yeah. Mordred. I'll put him in B tier. I think he's fine, and I want to put him in A tier, but if you compare him to like Loki in the jungle or Amma in solo lane, doesn't play either of those roles as good as they do. There is some strength to him being a flex character, can play both jungle and solo, while Amma's strictly solo and Loki's strictly jungle. But you also have to be good enough in those roles, and I don't think he is. Neith, when I say hunters, I mean like auto attack characters. Jingwei is the only good one. Neith just builds like a mage, and she's good at that. She is very close to being in that S tier because, again, she has way too much CC in a game that doesn't have enough ways to avoid CC. Like, her ultimate should have been nerfed. Her ultimate 100% should have been nerfed going into Smite 2. It makes it so you can never fight on the side lanes when there's a Neith in the game because she just ults the guy, and if he has Aegis, great, he's stunned, he's CC'd. I can then go into a spot where I can win this 1v1 after that CC. If they have beads, Oh, 1,000 damage onto your forehead. Good luck. If you have blink, 1,000 damage and you're CC'd for a second and a half. Good luck, buddy. Something needs to change with her ultimate. And I don't think it's the damage. Somebody had a good idea where if you're moving when Neathal hits you, maybe then it stuns you, maybe it just roots you or something like that. As it currently stands, it is super infuriating to play against, and it doesn't feel like there's much counterplay. Nuwa, I think Nuwa's B tier. When you have all these mages in the top tier, someone's got to be weaker. And I think Nuwa is weaker than Cuckoo, Hakate, and Anubis. I actually think most mages are in a solid spot, but she's just the worst out of them. She is decently safe now. She does scale very well into the late game. I just can't think of a reason to really pick her outside of you just want to have like this nuke late game. But even then, all of these characters also nuke late game. So I just don't see a reason to really pick Nuwa. Odin, A tier. Same thing as Alma. Both just very good laners, very few weaknesses, good CC, hard to deal with, hard to kill, all that stuff. Very safe. It's also insane how much damage this character does in laning phase with the change to his 3, where you can just spam it for the attack speed and also do bluestone damage onto you while also clearing the wave or slowing you. Sets up ganks really well. And he's probably, in terms of team fighting solo laners, the best one in the late game. I think Alma's a little bit better as a dive strictly character, but Odin can play peel or dive or just separate fights. It's crazy good. Soul's terrible. Horrible character. Doesn't do any damage. Her int build is actually okay, but again, compare her to the other mages. Are you ever wanting an int Soul over Nuwa or Cuckoo or Katea, Anubis or Neath? No. She had like this little time when she was good with crit, but currently hunter items after crit got nerfed aren't very good. Soul's just a bad character. Susano, I'm going to put in B tier. I think he's still good, and he's probably one of the top of B tier characters. He's just not Loki level in terms of jungling. Is he bad by any means? No, he's still got a lot of movement speed, a lot of damage, a lot of CC. It's just, if he gets hit by a CC, most of the time he's just dying. Like, Loki wins the 1v1 versus him. He wants to 1v1 people. Neath doesn't allow that. He can't really kill solo laners. He's still good, but he's just not Loki tier. Thanos C tier. This god is just... The one does a lot of damage for 7 levels, and then past that point, you just feel like you're tickling. You have to be massive to carry games. If you're even, you're behind on Thanatos. The execute is awesome, but if you're picking a character just as an execute bot, pick Sobec. Morrigan, she's a strange character right now because I think it's hard to play her because of her bugs. I'm going to put her in lower or in B tier. There's just too many bugs with her. It's hard to transform correctly. She does feel smooth, but it's always just been a funky thing with Mori. The more they work on her, I think the better she's going to feel, and eventually maybe she moves up to A tier. Especially being able to use actives and relics of the enemy. Easily could put her in A tier. I've not really also had a ton of issues with the bugs, but all I see in the esports channel is Morrigan's bugged. It's hard to play her. She doesn't do this well. This is bugged. Stuff like that. I'm going to put her in B tier. Yamoja, A tier. It's a big surprise. Yamoja in A tier. I actually think she is less broken in Smite 2 than she is in Smite 1. Characters allowed to have as many actives as they can, give them more counterplay against Yamoja. I don't think the cast she is that good into also. She is still good. She still has her positives. If she gets ahead, she's dominant. If the game goes late, she's dominant. Her laning phase is okay. Still a good character. I think it's just harder matchups in Smite 2. Ymir, another A tier character. Very strong laning phase. Very good from ahead. A couple nerfs to his wall and his passive have made him a little bit worse. But I still think he's just very strong, and he's almost always worth the pick. Zeus, I'm going to put Zeus in B tier. Even after his bug fix of his one doing the correct amount of damage, he still has this inherent flaw of just not being able to walk into fights as well as other mages. His range is so short. His ultimate is still not good until like level 20 full build when it does like 1,000 damage with one tick. So his early game is fine. His mid game is horrendous. And then his late game, late game is also good again. But I would way rather just play with the other mages than I'd rather play with Zeus. Next up, Ra and Sobec. They don't have the pictures of them, but I'll just talk about them. Ra currently is probably an A tier character. There are going to be some nerfs to Ra, but I don't think that they ruin him. His 2 with the auto attacks are just broken. It is just so broken being able to proc a bunch of item effects. I have an insane Raw game that I posted on Twitter just about like the damage I did, the survivability, all that stuff. And I'm probably going to post it to YouTube because it was such an insane game. That character is going to be good without that 2 change. Once they nerf it, whether they make it 50% value on the 2's auto attacks or item effects or whatever they do, it's not going to hurt him that much. He'll stay A tier. And then Sobec, I think, is also an A tier character, but I don't think he has a ton of strength in solo. I mean, in support. I think he's really good in solo lane. He wants to get ahead, and a lot of his kit scales with how much health he has, which you get from playing solo lane, not as much in support. Is he still going to be good in support? Yes, but I think he's not great into the current support god pool. Like playing the duo lane matchup, Bacchus versus Sobec, it's going to go pretty even, and then Bacchus scales better. Yemoja, it's going to go pretty even. Yemoja scales better. Ymir, it's a 50-50, very, very volatile matchup. Neither of you scale all that well. But I think in solo lane, he's insane. His 3 scales with the amount of health he has. The ultimate, he gets more health the more executes he gets. So he's going to be wanting to play more aggressive. You're allowed to build a little bit more damage. Maybe force a Mirrodin into your build or something that you wouldn't be able to do in support. I think he's very good in solo. I think he's fine in support. That's the tier list. Let me know what you guys think.